My son has had a toy dog since he was born. It's this green dog that plays music and speaks when you press his paw, and you can program it to say your child's name. He also speaks in a young child's voice. Since my son was an infant at the time, all his toys were pretty much contained to our living room as he wasn't crawling yet. Every night before we went to bed, we would put his toys away in a wicker basket that we had beside our entertainment system. I distinctly remember putting the toy dog back in the basket. I woke up to 2 in the morning to the toy's voice under my bed, saying, "Do you want to play, Ryan?" which was my son's name. I was halfway to my son's room to get him up and get the fuck away from that haunted-ass toy before my brain turned on and I realized that my cat had dragged the toy under our bed and was currently humping the shit out of it. Fucking cats, man. So my friend and her husband bought a 1920s arts and crafts style cottage and spent a year or so fixing it up and did a pretty damn good job. The house was beautiful, immaculate, and still cozy and homey. She asked me if I'd be willing to house and pet sit for a few weeks, and I agreed, looking forward to pretending the house was mine for a while. She took me on a walkthrough and I noticed that the attic door was not only locked, there were several boxes of books piled up against it. When I commented, she said the cats were at the door constantly because there were bats in the attic. I jokingly asked if the house was haunted. She laughed and said no, she didn't believe in ghosts anyways. A few nights into my stay, I started having weird dreams and waking up to the sensation of not being alone. I started hearing noises coming from the attic, not footsteps, more like subtle bumping and dragging noises. I called a friend and she sent her dad over to investigate and said again that it was the bats. The noise creeped me out, so I asked my boyfriend to stay with me. The first night he woke me and said that he saw someone standing in the hall outside of the bedroom. Of course, no one was in the house, and he thought maybe he was dreaming. The second night we both heard the sounds coming from the attic. We decided to spend the rest of the night sleeping on couches in the family room. It was then that I saw the black orbs, like what you see in a picture when someone points out orbs. I watched these translucent blackish bubbles move around the room. The second to last day, I went in the late afternoon after work to feed the cats and spend a little time with them. I had had a long day and I dropped off to sleep on the couch. When I woke, it was dark outside. I sat up feeling that disoriented feeling you get when you nap. From my seat on the couch, I could see a picture that was on the wall of a short hallway connecting the front foyer to the kitchen. The picture glass reflected the kitchen. I looked at the picture and saw what looked like a man standing in the kitchen, motionless. His stillness was totally unnatural. I could see that even in a reflection, like he was a cutout of a person. His eyes were just 2 black holes, and I had the misfortune of making eye contact with this thing that was in there. I knew instantly that it was looking at me. The second I made eye contact, I felt an overwhelming sensation of revulsion and absolute fear. I'm talking about a primitive, nausea-inducing horror. My skin literally started crawling, my heart started racing. I had to get the fuck out of there, and I mean immediately. The figure in the kitchen was not visible anymore, but it was definitely not gone. I felt certain that if it appeared again to me, I would never get over it. Thank God my purse and shoes were with me. I grabbed my stuff without putting my shoes on and bolted for the door. Turning my back on the kitchen to open the door was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I knew it was behind me. At this point I was shaking. I leapt out the door and pulled it closed, but I still had to lock the door. I fumbled and dropped the keys, and as I bent to pick them up, I became sure that the thing was standing right there, behind the big pane of beveled glass that made up the top half of the door. So I closed my eyes and locked the door with my eyes shut tight. And then I ran to my car and drove away as fast as I could, without looking back at the house, so I wouldn't see what was looking out at me. I called my friend's mom and told her I couldn't finish as I was sick, so she asked no more questions. A few months after this, my friend had a baby, and a month after that, my friend abruptly put the house up for sale and moved out before it sold. This had been her and her husband's dream home. They sunk everything into it. It was her trophy. I asked her why they sell their house, and she only said that they had to get out. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The real creepy ones you see in a lot of movies. Anyway, I had been driving for about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and safely sleep. Later on, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up, and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass, behind some bushes to try and hide my car from anybody else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty, I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was awoken by a scratching noise. I looked at the clock, it was 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out, because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car. But why would it return almost an hour after I had left the previous time? I looked in the rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratched the couple's car and then slaughtered the guy when he got out to investigate? Yeah, fuck that, I thought to myself. So I got the hell out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and as I came around it, there was a fucking car parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to see if anyone was in there, and there wasn't. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey you, get the fuck out of the car, now! I noped the fuck out of there and sped off. I never saw that guy again. Moral of the story? Don't sleep on the side of a deserted road.